Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Canopy Cafe on Thursday, July 30th of 2020. Today, we are featuring a really wonderful guest from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Nancy Brooks. And before we jump into everything with Nancy today, I want to just introduce the Canopy Cafe. So these are conversations in good business and discussing how we can stay connected, how we can uplift the important work of organizations here in Louisville and throughout the state of Kentucky. And Canopy is really committed to promoting good business practices throughout Kentucky and to uplift the voices of those that are leading this important work. And so we have with us today my colleague, Alex Page, who is going to introduce some ideas, some news in good business. So let's welcome Alex to the show.
Hi, Ben.
Hey, Alex, morning.
How are you?
Doing just fine on this rainy day. How are you?
I'm good. I can even tell that the lighting is kind of off in my room because of the rain. But it's okay. I appreciate the rain. I feel like it's been, we've needed it for a while.
Yeah. Not opposed to a free car wash.
That too.
So what's going on in the news today?
So I have two different stories, and I tried to relate both of the good business news stories to mental health, since that is what our guest is mainly going to be talking about. And so a lot of this has to do with COVID-19's impact on mental health and how that's affecting workers right now. So the first one is there was a study that recently came out that shows that COVID-19's impact on gender inequality and mothers' mental health. So this week, a study conducted by the University of Kent and the University of Birmingham in the UK showed the extent to which the pandemic has set back efforts towards gender parity in the workplace and has also placed a massive burden on parents' mental health, particularly working mothers. So they did a survey of over 1,100 people, and it showed that a vast majority of women did more cooking, cleaning, laundry, childcare, as many of you probably know, during the lockdown than before. So that's forcing them to deprioritize paid work more frequently than their male counterparts. So almost half of all mothers surveyed felt more rushed and pressed for time during the lockdown, and 46% felt nervous and stressed more than half of the time. So only 15% of the mothers said that they had managed to set clear boundaries between work and family, largely on account of the closure of schools and child care facilities. So Dr. Hee-Jung Chung of Kent School of Social Policy stated that there were signs that the increased workload and conflict between work and family has negatively impacted parents' mental well-being, especially mothers, and we need a thorough gendered analysis on the economic impact of the lockdown, and more resources and policies are needed to support parents, especially mothers' labor market attachments. So in order to combat this, there have been companies like Uber and Salesforce who have signed a pledge to be more supportive of working parents. So hopefully that sets an example for a lot of companies that have a lot of employees, have a lot of working families that have to stay at home, that they're able to provide those opportunities and that support for them.
Very interesting, and I can completely understand. I don't have any children myself, but I know from my brother and sister-in-law who have a 2-year-old themselves, and trying to manage, childcare and their full-time jobs is quite difficult. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, stress someone out, it takes a toll on your mental health. So just all the more important to be able to support in that way, so that those issues don't come up.
Absolutely. What else do we have in the news today?
So another article that I have is about how job loss has brought mental health challenges along with economic challenges. So it's the connection between the job loss and the mental health challenges. So as of mid-July, 32 million Americans were considered unemployed. Even just in the state of North Carolina alone, they're nearing 1.2 million unemployment insurance claims. And so while the economic effects of nationwide job loss can be measured, the mental health effects are a lot more difficult to quantify. But there was a guy from Wake Forest University. His name is Seth Hayden. He's the counseling professor there. And in an interview, he was saying that when someone loses a job, whether it's been on the horizon or if it's a sudden, there's an immediate sense of loss. So they may feel anxious, angry, confused, or sad. And work is an interconnected dimension of the human experience that affects our perception of ourselves. So it can be really damaging or troubling whenever someone does lose their job, and that's been happening so frequently lately. So even with the expiration of the CARES Act funding means that many more families are about to experience even more dire economic hardship and anxiety as rent and bills come due. So when layoffs and job losses happen, there's kind of a domino effect that can elicit a sense of loss to the point of experiencing grief. So for those with families, there's even more at stake when relationships are strained by economic insecurity, which can impact access to basic necessities for parents and children. And so all of that was also said by Seth Hayden from Wake Forest University. So with all of that being said, it's really difficult for companies to be able to try to balance this idea of even staying afloat with the fact that they have to sometimes lay off workers. And so that can be difficult whenever, keeping the company interests in mind, but then also wanting to keep your workers' interest in mind. So just something to consider as you are laying off employees or furloughing them.
Absolutely. I think there's so many incredibly complex decisions that are being made right now by those, in charge of businesses. And we have to be very mindful of the people that are in it and the complex needs that we have. And the fact that this is, a very unique situation and it requires unique solutions. So those are very fascinating news stories and very topical for our guest today. Was there any other news stories or was that it for today?
That's it for today.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, Alex, and for keeping us in the know.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, take care.
See ya.
All right. So our guest today is Nancy Brooks, and Nancy is the executive director of the National Association on Mental Illness in Louisville, which was founded in 1979, and they provide services to people living with mental illness, their families, and the overall Louisville community. And so you can imagine right now with everything going on amid the global pandemic that mental health is incredibly important. And, to the news stories that Alex spoke about, to what we all experience in individual ways, I think Nancy will have a really unique insight into some of their projects they have going on, some advice that they can offer, and how you can get connected with them if you're looking for some of these services. So I will go ahead and bring Nancy on. So I think Nancy's backstage. There she is.
Hello.
Good morning, Nancy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
I'm good.
Good. Your screen is much brighter than mine, as we were saying in the pre-show. I really rely on the natural light here, and it's a pretty cloudy day, so I'll rely on just making sure I can articulate my questions well instead of you all being able to see me too well.
That sounds good. Yeah, I like to have the lighting on as well when it's dark out, but this is pretty bright in this spot, so I feel like I'm on the news for certain.
Well, we're so glad to have you on the show this morning, and it's incredibly timely, right?
Yes.
We've been experiencing the various impacts of the global pandemic for months now, and the end is not necessarily in sight. And so, we're coping, we're figuring out, all these ways in which we need to work. We continue to peel back the layers of the onion, to Alex's point about, working life, parent life, and just everyday life that we all, are going through, and how we need to be mindful of our mental health and how we can access services. And your organization is doing some very important work in terms of, education, reducing and eliminating stigma about mental illness and advocating. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the National Alliance on Mental Illness here locally.
Sounds good. I think Alex really brought some points to the topics of what we were going to discuss that were fantastic. And one that really strikes me is that concept of identity with our work. I came to NAMI Louisville through nonprofit management. So it wasn't like I had been spending my whole life in the mental health industry, but I am truly focused and involved in everything mental health now in our community and literally wearing this. So when people lose their jobs and they find themselves without that identity, it's very impactful to their mental health. Yeah. There's also folks who are attempting to go back into the office place and finding themselves in very confused emotional states as to not feeling they fit in any longer. I loved her talking about the overlap with mental health and working from home, and especially the pressures that puts on the parent. These are all top tier topics for what we're experiencing in mental health in the COVID environment.
Absolutely. I believe it was Alex early on, amid this pandemic when we were discussing, working from home, and she was very, thoughtful and mindful to lift up the fact that it's, not exactly working from home, more working at home while being forced to work at home during a global pandemic, and there's a difference, we're
yes.
fortunate to have the ability to work from home. And so I'm at home right now and thankful to be able to see you virtually, but it's different. We're not necessarily choosing this, and it has, impacts that we're learning on a daily basis. And, from the parental perspective, so my brother and sister-in-law have a 2-year-old, and there have been a few times where I've been, called up for pinch hitting and in terms of looking after the little guy and, during various hours in the workday. And I will tell you, trying to get work done while looking after that little guy is virtually impossible. He will not allow it. And so I can only empathize with parents that are trying to, maintain all the work that they need to get done and, be childcare providers and all these things. It's stressful, So what are you seeing in regards to, parents and are you seeing an influx of people that are reaching out for your services that are, struggling with childcare?
Well, and I'll go ahead and share what some of our services are so that people know a little bit more about us. We run support groups, educational classes, and do large group presentations where it can be topic designed by the requester, or it can be something that is specific to just we would like to have someone come in and share their life's journey with mental health. We're happy to do pretty much whatever in that category. But as you can tell, a virtual environment creates more of a platform for something like this than it does for me sitting on a YouTube video, sharing out data points. We're continuing our education classes and our support groups virtually, and they are going well. And they meet the needs of individuals specifically through peer relationships. So if you're an individual with your own mental health condition, you would attend a group led by folks who are also in that category. If you're a family member or a parent, you would be in a different group. So those things are still up and running, and we're thrilled to be able to offer them. But a lot of what we're doing in this climate is reinventing ourselves as well, just as everyone else has found themselves doing. So we're creating new programs and new processes and continuing to develop other new programs and processes that we just know are going to help our community. So one of the things we had originally talked about with you and the Canopy Cafe team is our stigma-free workplace program. The concept of stigma-free workplace is that any employer, and Alex touched on this a bit too, has invested in their employee. They have trained them. They have gotten to know them. They have put them in a category that fits their skill sets and their abilities. And suddenly, in this climate, we find those skill sets and abilities challenged. It can be challenged by technology. Earlier, there was a time when your technology was fuzzing in and out just a moment. For me, it's seeing myself on a screen gives me less comfort in the way I talk. I'm worried that my hands are waving too much or that my glasses are reflecting too much. So it reduces my ability to perform my job at the best place possible. So for any of us, that is happening. But when an employee is asked to come back to the office, for example, they may experience additional anxieties. We're experiencing things in our work climate where, you're taking your temperature, you're wearing your mask, it's like a ghost town in many ways. Most people are not there. When I have something I'd like to hand off to an employee, I can't just hand it off to an employee. I need to scan it and email it over. So again, these are challenges that are causing anxiety for folks. What Stigma-Free Workplace will do will help the management and the HR personnel support that individual, help to reduce the stigma associated with it, because the stigma used to be there even when the numbers were 1 in 5 individuals will seek mental health services each year. We're already at 1 in 4. I think the pandemic and our racial trauma issues are going to see higher numbers. People are going to start focusing their attention on what is wrong with me? How come I am feeling this way? Why am I anxious? So seeking help for a physical condition would not be an alarm setter for an employer, nor should a mental condition be an alarm or concern. We all need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our family members. If you're a parent and your child's experiencing mental health conditions, which many youth are during this climate, you're going to need to take some hours off to address that. You're going to need to be part of the solution. This is all the environment of compassion that we're aiming to create within the workplace. And we've already had some very successful examples that we could share on how this is working.
Yeah, I'm very interested in some of the examples to see how this is working. I mean, to your point of, the increase in numbers and the complexity of challenges that we see right now in regards to racial justice and being forced to work from home. What's a good example in some of the work that you've been doing recently?
Well, a good example is I'm going to use the restaurant industry. We have several restaurants that are stigma-free workplaces, and those folks are really suffering financially right now and emotionally. They're not being able to utilize their craft at the level they could. Their income has been reduced. They're missing the camaraderie of what that feels like to have your favorite customer show up at your table. Those things are all challenging emotionally for staff of our local amazing restaurant industry. And we've had at least 2 calls about folks whose employee were suicidal. And in addressing the needs of that individual, we have helped the whole team become closer. They have developed into a family because they're talking about this instead of isolating that individual, ignoring their need, and potentially losing a life. Both lives were saved. And again, the positive repercussions are an amazing, wonderful work environment. Another stigma-free partner, Aetna Better Healthcare of Kentucky, is utilizing every aspect of free programming we have. They are reaching out and saying, hey, I heard there were, some free suicide prevention trainings being offered through the Louisville Health Advisory Board. Can we get lined up for that? Absolutely. Hey, we heard there was something we could train for in this area. What about the support groups? What type of pieces of paper can we email out to our staff? That's the kind of partnership we're looking for, because we know that there's someone in that staff who is being emotionally challenged right now.
Yes.
And all we need to do is be there for that moment of need. We've also worked with a group of therapists who we've been working with for years, but now they have developed a mental health resource guide. So that is a great opportunity for folks to just get on that resource guide and plug in what their need is. Are they looking for a support group? Are they looking for a therapist? Do they look for a therapist in a certain part of town or with a certain skill set? And then immediately it pops up and they're able to better identify where they can go for help.
Absolutely. Those are wonderful examples, and at Canopy, our work is focused on uplifting good business. And, there's so many elements to a good business. And, part of our genesis was based on the statistics that we typically see in Kentucky, and specifically with mental health. We consistently rank quite poorly from a national perspective in terms of overall statewide mental health. And especially now, it's only exacerbating everything. And so, Canopy's work centered on good business. I'm curious, what is your definition of good business as it pertains to mental health?
That's wonderful to ask. I would say that good business as it pertains to mental health is a two-way communications relationship with no stigma associated with it. So honest, open communications on both avenues. Management, HR, sending people information that is helpful. Having maybe a champion on staff. That's one of our guidelines. You have a champion who is the person who is identifying the needs and helping to support those needs. So if they say, gosh, I think we're all just tired of wearing suits every day, let's wear jeans on Friday, and that builds mental health in a positive way for that community, then that's a win. But we can't identify that from our perspective. That's an internal feeling that an organization has. And along that line, if the stigma's there, people are not asking for help. And I like to use this example that all of us have some psychological injury in our brains. We failed at a job, or we were bullied as a child, or whatever the common thread might be. Mm-hmm. And most of us can relate to this concept that what we do is push it down. We just kind of push it back in the back. We don't worry about it too much because, that bullying incident was really bothersome, but let's not focus on that. Let's just ignore it and move forward. Well, when a trauma or psychological injury becomes so severe that you can't push it down anymore, you see it. But you wouldn't push a physical injury down. If you broke your arm, you wouldn't just tell everybody, well, I'll get around to that when the time comes. I'm going to ignore it in the meantime because it's not important to me. It's just an arm. Think about how amazing our brains are. I was watching something the other day about scientific developments and identifying factors in brains. And there's so much we do not know about our brains. But one thing we do know is that traumas or injuries in our brains that are ignored become problems.
Right.
So we need those individuals to say, something's bothering me. What should I do about that? And have it be okay to say that. Have it be all right to seek help, and have it be supported by the management. So that's a healthy work environment.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing, from the free services to, what you can offer on a holistic scale to organizations and individuals. And so we definitely want to uplift where people can go to connect with you and your organization if they're in need of these services, if they're a team member or an organization that's looking to increase their offerings to their team members. So where can people go to learn more and to access your services?
Okay, our website is NAMILouisville.org. That's NAMI, standing for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. You can go to that website and seek our resources through Find Help. You can look for our support groups and education classes. There are other services in there I haven't mentioned. You can contact me anytime if you'd like my email or phone number. I can certainly put that out there. My email is nancy.brooks@namilouisville.org. I can get your business connected with our stigma-free workplace. I can get your family member connected with a support group or an educational class. I can do that for you. In addition to all of this, we are working with a new subsidiary called Project Tech Drive. That's new since we last talked. And Project Tech Drive is, we're recruiting gently used technology tools, old smartphones, laptops, desktops, or tablets. We want to share them out with through both the City of Louisville and their NEED program, which is based on financial need. And those folks can get free devices, low cost internet service, and training. So that's one thing that we can do with that program. The other is telehealth services. If you're elderly and you need to be educated on the tools that are associated with these technologies, we can train you on that. But the bottom line is we don't want anyone out there needing services and not being able to receive those services. Are you a youth trying to educate from home and you don't have the proper technology? That's another thing. Folks can reach out for us, and we will connect you with Project Tech Drive and get a tool in your hand and training to your home.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for stopping by the Canopy Cafe, for articulating the importance of your work now and always. You know, the mental health is always going to be an important thing to consider, you know, from an employment standpoint, an individual standpoint. So we applaud the work that you're doing, and we hope everyone who is in need on this call can access their resources for whatever they might need. And Nancy, I look forward to continuing the conversation with you and figuring out how we can continue to work together and apply these quality mental health programs within the Good Business Network that we're building.
Oh, and I appreciate that, Ben. Thank you so much. And
Thank you,
yes,
Nancy.
reach out to us, guys.
All right. Take care, Nancy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was Nancy Brooks of the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Louisville. And as you can see, they're doing such incredibly important work, and you know their services are available through their website if anybody needs them. And Canopy is in the midst of a big year right now, so we are really looking forward to the Canopy certified program. So the definition of good business that we alluded to throughout this conversation, really guiding businesses towards greater social and environmental impact, is really at its core what the Canopy certified program is all about. So we're very excited to be rolling that out later this year. And we have a few opportunities for people to take action in the meantime. The first of which is to participate in our event next week. We recently concluded our 27 campaign and fund in support of racial justice within the workplace. And we were able to recruit 26 businesses to strengthen their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within the workplace. We were able to raise nearly $49,000 that will be allocated to Black-owned business owners and entrepreneurs throughout Kentucky. And we are announcing the transition of this partnership with the Bingham Fellows program through Leadership Louisville. And so please check out our social handles to sign up for that event. It's free, and we would love anybody to participate in the live stream and learn about what we've accomplished. So that's the first step you can take. Also, we are asking people to sign what we call the Charter for Good Business. If you believe that these good business principles are important and you think that businesses should operate with this elevated consciousness and ethical regard, please go to our website, canopyky.org, and sign your name to the Charter for Good Business. It's a really important metric for us as we continue to have conversations with business owners, elected officials, nonprofit executives. It really strengthens our case and really encourages people to adopt these principles in good business. So sign the charter, canopyky.org. We'll be back next week with the Canopy Cafes. We will have Jerome Baker of the River City Drum Corps and an entrepreneur who's just starting up his own consulting business. He'll be on the cafe next Tuesday. And then we will also feature El Home and New Directions on Thursday of next week. So be sure to tune in Tuesday and Thursday right here at 10 a.m. So that does it for me and the Canopy Cafe today. I hope you all take care. See you later.